All righty, and welcome back, everyone. Hello, and thank you so much for being here.
Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
It's a good day.
Good.
Today, we have the pleasure of having Dr. Thomas on.
Hi, thank
Yay!
you.
Yeah,
I'm excited to be here.
I'm so grateful that you are. Thank you. So, how is everyone feeling today? Let's start there. How is everyone feeling today?
Good. Status quo. I'm not going to talk about the weather this time. I talked about the weather every single time we've recorded, so good.
The weather.
I constantly open up with the weather. I'm always like, oh, it's so cold today. I'm like, nope, not going to talk about the weather today. It's a beautiful day wherever you are because it's all in here. How's that? I'll be all spiritual today.
All righty, that's one way to do it, Deanna. I like that.
Yeah.
I
Thomas,
get it.
how are you feeling today?
I'm just fine. It's a good day, and I don't worry about the weather because it doesn't matter. I'm gonna get up and have to do things no matter what.
The
It's
weather's
true.
going to
It's
be
If I
what the
true.
can't get
weather's
out of
going to
my
be.
driveway, then I can't get out of my driveway. Oh well.
It's not such a bad thing. A little hibernation, watching the Bills game, enjoying the day. I can see that. Go Bills. They're my team now. So go Bills.
Well, of course,
Yes,
they
I
should have
know.
always been your team, but that's a different story.
I took a little
Nope, no,
side trail.
nope. We're
Okay,
not
it's
gonna
the
go there.
Bills. Bills forever. Bills forever. There we go. Yes, my sister's at the game apparently, or on her way to the game. So that'll be fun because, yeah. So today we bring you Dr. Thomas, my very dear friends, mentor and healing partner, and a man of many talents. How's that sound? Um, we wanted to have you on today to tell us about your journey. Thomas, you've done a lot of really interesting things. You had really just, you have a lot of things to say. You have a lot of interesting experiences, and I think it would be really interesting to pick your brain a little bit and hear more about them. Does that sound good?
That sounds wonderful, but we can go in every single direction. It's if someone asked me even 10 years ago, would I be doing anything like this? I'd be laughing at them. Um, growing up, as an adult and all that stuff, yeah, I would go to, have a psychic reading every once in a while and do all whatever. And uh, it was maybe about, now I can say closer to that 12, 15 years ago, right? I asked the question, how does this all work? Like, where does God fit into everything? What I'm, I don't understand. Put it together for me. And I asked it in ways where, I was raised Catholic, went to, went to school where religious ed every Saturday. My parents would drop us off. And I have five brothers. I mean, literally, my dad would go to 8 o'clock mass on Sunday mornings. Okay, so think about it. He was a Eucharistic minister. So, mind you, first off, we'd all try to sleep in so we didn't have to go to mass. Didn't work that often. And I would be the fool sometimes. Oh, I'm gonna sneak and turn the TV on just ever so, quietly so I can just watch TV. And then, of course, I get stuck to be the one going to mass. But just think about this. Six boys. We're less than 5 years apart. So even if I'm 10, the youngest are five. All right. So we're close in age. He'd take us to church. He wouldn't just take us to church because he was the Eucharistic minister. So he had to be at that church. He had to be either on the altar the whole time or behind the altar. And so he'd take the six of us, or wherever was up, take us, drop us off in the front row in the very center of the church, leave us, and go on the altar for the whole mass. So think about that. That's what we did. I mean, so yes, and they called the front row the handicap section. It was they knew front center to the left was us. And so we were there, and my mom would show up when she was home, and we all go. It didn't make a difference. So, but did all that stuff. Went to church religiously, all that. Prayed, had things happen to my life. Uh, but when I started my doctorate or restarted it, that really came to the questions like, who is God? How does this fit in together? What are we doing? And so I put it out there, never expecting a real answer. And a few years later, that's when everything fell apart. Uh, what I've learned in my journeys and my studies and everything I've done, the best way to put it is yes, I have my PhD. I'm a researcher. I've needed proof. I observe. I've been able and I've been trained to separate myself to be objective in almost every situation. Even the ones against me, I've trained myself to pull myself aside to look at it from a different lens because we all have our own biases. We all have whatever experiences have been within us, whatever we've gone through, wherever our life has been, we have that perspective and that lens when we look at things. And so I've trained myself to try to separate myself from that so I can see it from another perspective. Now, does it work all the time? Technically, yes, but does it really work? Because your bias is still there. It's like, I really want this. But I know, and I mean, it happened yesterday. I literally wrote a message to someone explaining the issue with me and trying to explain it about someone else, saying, oh my goodness, I'm talking about myself, but I don't want to do that. But it's like you give the lessons out there, but you can see it, and so it helps. You know, it's tough to do on your own, but you can do it. And so when I've talked to people, and I've wanted to learn, so at one point I had an idea of writing a book of people how they awoken up, their awakening points, and almost everyone I talked to have something very similar. They had to get broken.
Mm.
Yep.
You have to get broken. You don't always, but most people have gotten broken so they could sit and have themselves rebuilt. And I say that because we, at the age of 0 through 7, that is when we are still in that, I'm going to call it a womb state right now. That's the early transition from spiritual self to human self. It is when we are still that child. It is when we still see, hear, speak, talk, have that really close connection. The veil between us and the other side is very, very, very thin. It's when we get to that 6, 7, 8 that the human side really starts taking over. The ego gets a little louder inside the body, and we start being like, ooh, this is what I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be fearing this. I'm supposed to act like this, to do this. This is what my parents are telling me, my friends are telling me, the teacher's telling me. You are now being indoctrinated in how to live and who you are. One of the best examples I can say, and I've learned, is imagine at birth, you are this clean slate, this clean cork board. Remember just being in an office, if you're a nurse, being that cork board in the break room, and all of a sudden you got a post-it note put on it, another post-it note, another post-it note, another message, another thing you got to do. That's what happens to us. As we begin birth and we start going on, someone's going to label us one. All right, I'm white. I'm a white male. That's labeled here first. All right, now I have a Polish heritage, an Italian heritage, and whatever it is. It doesn't matter whether you're poor, you're rich, you are affluent, you can speak multiple languages. It doesn't matter. Everything that you experience, people, others are putting labels on you and they're sticking to you. And now this, as much as you hold on to it, becomes your identity. Becomes hear that, how you think you need to act, how you think you need to behave in a social settings that have been established by others. And so when you're broken, some of them start falling off. You start seeing, well, wait a minute, this is what this, you don't know what they put on, but this was that put on me, that was put on me. You start reimagining who you are. And if you can go in, you can start thinking about who you want to be. And so in my case, I was broken. I was, at one point, at the same time in life, I was in a year span, the president who single-handedly hired me and promoted me and made her, the number two, and sent me to Harvard University to become a college president. I mean, I studied at Harvard to become college president. Was forced to resign. I was then told by the guy who he liked me, he goes, "There's nothing I can do. They're all coming after you next." Because it wasn't just a resignation, it was a whole, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it. It was a whole coup. It doesn't matter. Everything was changed. And then my marriage fell apart. So I was losing my job, lost the mentor, everything was coming, just falling apart. And I actually myself during that time frame was like, okay, to get that next level, am I at the right church? Am I looking to the right things? And I actually went to multiple different churches, explored what those are like, still didn't know what I was doing. And then I took the step forward. Unknowingly, I reached out to someone and said, tell me about, I see all this spiritual stuff that you're talking about. I'm like, this astrology and the planet. I'm like, talk to me about it. And it was weird. This person I had avoided for 20 years. And now we started talking, and she kind of opened me. Everyone comes into everyone's life for a reason. Everything is synchronicity. Everything that happens is planned in synchronicity. We have the choice whether or not to see that step through, to see it and how we want it to go. We can choose no, we can choose yes, we can choose maybe, we can stop at any time, but everything is planned in synchronicity. So like in that case, that person happened, we connected, and we happen to be in almost very similar parts in our lives, unknowing to us. But what we did for each other and what she did for me was put me on the path, was to help me truly start connecting what I had been learning, what I've been thinking about, what I've been reading, what I've been going, to put me on a path that I'm on. And then it all happened. Uh, and that was probably the most pivotal thing that ever happened is when I had my first Reiki session.
Mm.
So, I'm sorry, it wasn't my first Reiki session actually. The year before, a couple years earlier, when I was at the place that had the coup and everything, the assistant dean, would do various student life activities, and I tried to support them as much as possible. And they one time did Reiki, which I had no clue what it was, but I said I'll sign up for whatever. I truly felt like it was a fake massage. Just all right,
Yeah.
okay, I'm getting a fake massage, whatever. Did it a couple times, absolutely nothing, absolutely nothing. Now there's a reason why absolutely nothing. Because you're gonna go on so many tangents here tonight. You have no idea what you
Go for it.
disclaimer, they have no idea what I'm going to talk about. So, um, what I have learned, and I haven't shared this with many people, what I have learned is I know there was two purposes for when all three of us and anyone watching when we came into this life is those of us that are born after the late 80s when we came into this life we knew there were two options. We knew we would see one of two things. We would see the end or we would see the beginning. And so there were a few of us brought here to be the catalyst for the end or a catalyst for the transition. We've served both roles. We didn't know which one we would play. And up until that point, we were a catalyst for that side because we didn't know. Uh, so I go to this Reiki session and see, I'm getting to it. I'm going to this Reiki session. And I was called to this person. I wanted a necklace. And she goes, well, I don't have a necklace. I'll intuit someone for you and I'll call you. She gives me her card. She goes, I see healer on it. I'm like, oh my goodness. That friend I told you I had met, we had been talking about, she's a healer every week, every month. I'm like, I need a healer. So I'm like, let's do a healing instead. And then we can talk about what necklace I need. She goes, okay. I completely forgot, well, not forgot about it, but I did a little forget about it. Didn't know where her studio was to even get the healing. And so I thankfully found the card at the last second. When's the appointment again? And where are you? And it was like the next day. And I'm like, okay, good. Here we go. So I show up having no idea what's going to happen, no idea what's going to be next. And she just tells me to lay there. Like, okay. So I'm laying there on my back. I have an eye pillow on my mask, or eye pillow on my eyes, and my hands are like clenched, like this. Like I'm telling when I say clenched, clenched. I'm laying there on the table. So I'm laying there, and the person that had been like guiding me, she's all I could think about. Then she goes away, and I don't know I truly don't know what happened next. All I know is eventually these two orbs appear over my head,
Hmm.
and they're spinning around, and they leave. And then I basically say the two most important words I've ever said. Come back. And they came back. And this is where I pause the story.
Mhm.
I fast forward about 20 some minutes. The session's over with. And she wakes me up, gets me up, and she looks at me and she goes, "Oh my goodness. Do you know what happened?" And now I'm playing coy. I know what happened, but she's got to tell me. I'm not gonna. I'm a PhD. I need proof that you we're gonna. I'm not gonna lead you with the information. You got to give me it, and I'll verify it. So I'm like playing coy. No, what happened? And so she goes, whenever I do this, normally someone from your past comes in, past lives, or and then one of your guides comes in. They give me a message and they guide me what to say and do. I apologize. This is the profanity section of the story. So she goes, I lost you. Like I went to start and I could not find you. You were breathing so heavily and I could not feel your energy.
Mm.
And my guy just said, keep going. I'll explain what I did in a little bit. She then goes, and that's when I saw it. This thing between me and you, inside of you. And they just said to me, don't stop. Keep going. And that was my team. And I could see this thing inside of you blocking me. And they told me what to do, and they had the right crystals. They had to get the Apollo out, and they did various things all around me. And then she goes to me, and then all of a sudden, it jumped out. Went on my back, and I said, get the fuck off of me. My gods are much more powerful than you. And it jumped and scurried away. So back to what I was talking about.
So what jumped off of you and scurried away?
We shall not talk of it. I will get to it. To a point. Uh, I asked her at that point, where were you when this thing jumped out of me? And she goes, I was to your right by your head. And I immediately reply, I know. As I said in the beginning, the two orbs, they left. I've learned later, I said the most important words, come back. Those are my two guides who had been missing because of what had taken over. And what I saw when they came back with the two orbs, I saw their face here and here. Quick, I'm here, I'm here. And then what I saw right here Have you ever watched the TV series Stranger Things? You ask the question, you're going to get the answer now. I never did until 2 years ago. My oldest said, let's watch it. To catch up, new season, watch it. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try. Season 1, episode 4, the very beginning. If you haven't seen it, I'm not promoting anything. You do whatever you want. The mom is grieving, trying as they can't find her son. She's in the bedroom. And as the thing comes out of the wall, I pick up the remote and I go, fuck no. I press power and I press power and the TV goes off and I've never returned to the show. Uh, so if you want to know what came out and jumped on her back, you can watch season 1, episode 4. Uh, what I did ahead of time though, when I stopped and you saw me do the light language and just anytime I tell that story, and the thing that people need to understand is that is a light protection. I'm gonna put it that way because when we speak of that and we talk, what we're saying is, come to me. We don't want that. Uh, so it's very, you must be careful when you have those type of conversations, talking about those type of things, because it's not a, if you're strong enough and you have the light coming out farther enough from you and you've reached that point, you can be fine. But most people, when you start having those conversations, it's like, ooh, they're inviting us in. Let us get closer and closer and closer. Uh, but what that did, now a lot of different things. The neat thing about that, I don't share, like, we then started talking about this thing when it came in and all this stuff. What I was told that night, I don't need to know at that moment. All I need to know that it prevented me from being, I'm going to put in the better words, prevented me from being the man I was supposed to be. And when it came in was the exact time of the harmonic convergence in the late 80s. I know exactly when it came in. I figured that out. I remember that. I always had this sense of that moment when something hit my back. I knew exactly what was happening afterward. It took me 30 years to figure it out, but I got it. But what it did, it then inhibited me from becoming who I was supposed to be because of what the battle that's going on right now. Like I said, dark to light. Which one are we going to be controlling? Okay. And so the funniest thing about that whole thing is I remember her saying, it prevented you from being that man. And I looked at her and I said, oh my freaking goodness. That morning, because I had gone through a change over those past 8 months. That morning, I was at the gym working out with my trainer, who was this young girl, and she was talking for months about her boyfriend issues. And she looked at me and said, you really need to be there teaching men how to be a man. And I'm like, isn't that nuts? Because if you'd have asked me that and told me that a year ago, I would have laughed in your freaking face. Because I was so not that. But I was at that moment. Because the work I did leading up to that Reiki session, and I didn't do much. Trust me, it wasn't much. It was just me starting to make the right steps, starting to take the steps forward in my own journey, starting to slowly take some of those post notes off, empty, making that path that made it loose enough inside of me that she could take it out. Now I called the guides. It always a lot of things that had to happen, but I had already started that change, and I remember crying out of so much love that evening. Talking to that one friend, I remember I've never felt love like that ever in my life. And the next month, I can't tell you the absolutely crazy, incredible things that happened to me that there's no way to explain how any of this should happen. Those things have never happened before in my life. There's no way they should logically happen, but they all happened once my ex started getting clear and I started getting clear and we started moving forward into this pathway. There's so much more that I can get into. But let me ask if there's any questions about that part so far.
Could you explain a little bit about light language? a little bit more because we heard you speak it a little bit and you'd kind of touched on it, but can you explain more of what it is and how you open up to it?
That's a whole nother story. Uh,
Yes. But just kind
uh,
of like let people know like what it is because I don't know how many people who are listening are very familiar with it and I don't think we've actually discussed it much on here.
it's how we talk to you without you knowing. That's the beauty of it. We can't, if we, if anyone on here starts talking to you and tells you something, you're going to know what they said. That is now going to create an expectation and a bias in your life. You're now going to expect that. Let me use an example of, let's say you go to a psychic medium and you go there and you want, what is my future going to behold? When am I going to meet the man of my dreams, the woman of my dreams? When am I going to meet all this? When am I going to get my, whatever, okay? All of a sudden, they're going to give you a prediction of the future. Okay. My disclaimer. No, don't do that. Okay. And I'll explain why. I love the example they gave me and I give. Imagine a broom. You know what a broom is? You know, you got the long handle, and at the end you got like the thousands of bristles. So when you are going to get a prediction, you go there, and the prediction is it goes along that handle, and then you go along, and this whoever's seeing this future is then going along those thousands of bristles and plucking one, saying this is it. Based upon all the variables it took you to go on that down that handle to get to that one little bristle. There's 1,000 possibilities more of your future. They're telling you one. But now guess what? You are expecting that one. You are going to make all your choices based upon that one thought. You're going to assume that's what you need to do. No, yeah, that's what you're going to need to do. That's where you need to go. And you're going to expect that and turn away all the other options because it's not what you expect. The simplest way of saying this is, ooh, you're being told you're going to get a red Corvette. That's a convertible. Well, what if the blue, I don't know, Mustang convertible comes instead with everything you've ever wanted, but it's blue and it's a Mustang, not a Corvette? You're gonna be disappointed waiting for that red Corvette to come. When the blue one is what was really meant for you based upon the path you took. Because that future that they're seeing could have meant you made a right when you left the office instead of a left. And you made a left. Right then and there, you changed it. There are 1,000 little variables. So you ask, what light language? How does it fit in? Well, we can't tell you what you need to know. Because if we tell you what you need to know and you understand it, guess what? You didn't learn it. You didn't comprehend it. And you are now just relying on information that we've given you, and you have an expectation. But what we do with the light language, what the light language is, it's multiple different purposes. However, what it is there for, it is for us to activate. It's for us to talk to your soul, to talk to your inner being, to say, this is the healing we're giving to you. This is the activation. This is what you need to know deep down that's going to happen to give you the comfort. This is what you need to know just to help you out, to open up the possibilities that you've been looking for your entire life, for this moment. We can't tell you what it is or how it's going to work or why because you won't appreciate it and it will be lost. Because you will then easily be able to say, well, it happened once, so it's going to happen again. They're going to tell me again. And you can easily be manipulated to go somewhere else, to go on a different path and to lose it. So we want to speak it in another way, to activate it, to send it to you, to speak from us to your soul. Because that is pure love. Because we want you to experience it in a way that you can love it and move forward into the being you wanted to be. And so we keep it in another language. And you receive it. Now, even when we give it to Him, and we speak it to others and or to Him, He'll speak to us in light language, or vice versa. We'll speak to Him in light language because it's funny. He'll get it sometimes, and then He just gets a little things. Because sometimes we need to give Him a little message, and we give it this way because it's more fun. Because it's a new way. We are transitioning as a human species. You are transitioning. And so what people see nowadays when they go off and are if you're a psychic medium and you're seeing spirits in front of you and you're seeing their guides and you're having conversations with them, or you're needing to read the cards, or you're needing to have like verbal or physical proof and evidence in front of you in order to say you know what you're saying and seeing is going away. It's not going away, but it's going away. The new human that is coming out of this and the new higher frequency vibration won't need communication that way, won't need validation that way. They will get it through intuition and these simple conversations. And this is the start of it. Many people you see out there doing light language, it's valid. Many people that do light language do it for healing purposes and activation purposes. They're doing it to provide a healing at a vibration at a different level that we are not used to yet. And so that is what it is. That is why we do it that way. Because it's the way you learn. Other questions?
So I guess we could jump off of that a little bit and ask you about your channeling. Um,
Okay. Um, so everything's a journey. Everything happens in random ways. So if I fast forward a little bit past this path, I happen to stumble on various people in different groups and different organizations, a way to go, meeting various people. Um, it was winter 2020, December 2020. And I had what I call a sequel dream. Sequel dreams are dreams where you've already had part one, now you're getting part two.
mhm.
And this was part two. And I was having a lot of them this stretch. And it was right before Christmas. And in this sequel dream, I was in the same big city in these big skyrise buildings. And all of a sudden, these three doctors are there. And they're all fighting over who I'm the patient of. And all of a sudden, I get tapped and I fall down onto this coffee table and fall asleep. Not hurt, just falling down. Not really asleep. I'm just there. And I hear them all saying things. And all of a sudden, they say, Sheila Tillich is his creator. Then I wake up and her name pops right in my head again. I had no clue who this person was whatsoever. So I go onto Facebook and I look her up, and she happens to be friended with the Reiki who actually got the thing out of me. And so I'm like, oh, look, they know each other. To reach out to my Reiki. Hey, how do you know this person? Oh, she has different energy than I do. My sister worked with her. So I'm like, okay. So then I reach out to her saying, hey, you don't know me, but well, I had a dream last night. They told me you're my creator. Maybe we should talk.
Wow.
And I hit send. Less than an hour later, she got back to me. Yeah, we should talk. And that began the next part of the journey. Because at that point, I was imagine working on a puzzle, okay? And you don't know what the puzzle looks like, but all the pieces are there. And as I'm talking to her, and she's now once again, I'm not leading her, I'm making her lead me. She's saying things. I'm like, oh, yes, I already know about that. That goes here. Now that goes here. Now this goes here. And then, and so the whole first layer of the puzzle started coming into play. I was able to put these things together. And then she said, you need to learn about this, this, and this. And that was the next really big progression. Because then I started learning about Cryon, Lee Carroll. Now, Lee Carroll channels Cryon, who is uh, Cryon is an entity here for magnetic service to the Earth. Um, I can speak to a lot more detail what Cryon is, but if you ever read something and you're like, oh my goodness, yes. Ever been told something like, oh my goodness, that res. So she told me to look, and I read I audio booked the first 3 books that month, like that. And oh my goodness, it's like every go back that 13 years when I said, tell me the universe, how it was created, how God works into this. Bam, bam, bam. All the answers were right there. And it's like, now it makes sense. Now this whole thing makes sense. Now, granted, the beauty of it all, there's a lot of truth out there. Every religion has truth. In fact, religion is actually the search of truth. All the scriptures, there's truth in all these things, but you have to understand the context of the truth, why these things come out, why they come out at the time they do come out. That's a big thing with religion. A lot of people don't understand it's not a universal all end all truth. It is a truth for the moment for a purpose. Not always human purposes. Sometimes, as I go back to what I said with light language is, humanity needed to know things that might not have been the right answer, not a wrong answer, might not have been the right answer, but it was the answer that humanity needed so they could get to this point. Because the truth answer would have not have gotten them there. It would have kept them here. And we would never have known what this is. So a lot of this, there's a lot of truth out there. Anyways, that's when my COVID happens. And I don't know if we want to go through COVID. It's not, nothing to do with channeling, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
Um, I get hit with COVID. I literally did nothing wrong. I went out when I didn't want to go out, and my guide, I had a medium session with my Reiki, and it was over Zoom because 2021 still, that time period when everything was shut down. And she goes, oh, "You got a new guide." I'm like, "I do, I don't I?" She goes, "And it's a scientist." I'm like, "Oh, look, the scientists! They stay with me." And she goes, "Oh, they're very dry humor, and they're like, you got to get to work. Like, stop fooling around and get to work." Now, I knew what they meant. They meant stop trying to go out on dates. You're not ready for that, and just let's work on what we just gave you. I had a date that night. No, I was already running late, so I messaged her saying, "Hey, you know what? Let's just cancel because no way I'm gonna make it out to where we said we'd meet." She goes, "That's okay. I'll come to you." So I go out, whatever, masks on, all the safe stuff. I leave. I get home, and the next day I'm like running errands. I'm like, I fucking have COVID, don't I? I didn't. I felt perfectly fine. I felt perfectly fine, but everything in my body was saying, "Ha ha! We told you to stop it. We told you to sit down. You got COVID." And 4 days later, I was sick as a dog. Uh, Long story short, a week later was Super Bowl Sunday, and my ex said, "You're coming with me to the hospital." Took me there. I'm at the hospital. And the first thing they say to me is, "Yes, you clearly have COVID." And then they go, "But do you know about those masses on your chest? The tumor? You might need to look at that after you get the COVID out." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." Yeah. But now I leave and now I accidentally tell everyone or my ex, and she tells my whole family. But and they say to me, "Do you want to stay at the hospital or go home?" And they're basically was like, "Are you being abused, or is there any reason why you can't go back home? Because we have pizza and wings that just got delivered to watch the Super Bowl. We don't want to spend more time with you. What do you want to do?" I'm like, "No, I'm not being abused. I also go home." Well, the next day I was just as bad. They sent me back to the hospital. And this time the guy goes, "Well, you can stay or not." I'm like, "I'm staying." And I get admitted. They say it's gonna take about 20 days for everything to be good and for you to be back in good shape, whatever. And not good shape, but to be discharged if everything works out as we hope. That next morning, I did the one thing no one ever wants to do in a hospital. I pulled the cord in the bathroom saying, "I need help." Now, I was standing at the sink. I couldn't move. I couldn't even leave the room by myself. And they forced me to do it because they wouldn't walk in the room because I had COVID. So I literally had to somehow grab onto everything I could, trying to pull myself. And it took me 15, 20 minutes to pull myself from the bathroom back to the bed. And then at that point, they said, "We're moving you to the ICU." I, before I got any medicine, the colors I was seeing when I closed my eyes, the places I was going were beautiful. But I was like, I can't close my eyes. The things that were coming into me, I'm like, I'm not ready for this right now. I'm in the ICU, and they go to me, "We might incubate tomorrow. You're this close." And I can't remember if it was right at that moment or right before that moment. Something did happen. Something was in me and they took it. Something jumped into me and they took it off of me. I felt this weight come off of me. But I'm laying there and the light bulb went off. You fucking gave me COVID. I'm not listening. Okay. I sent a text to two people saying, "So when I get out of here, I'm going to start talking and teaching." And I sent it to someone else when I got out of here. "I need to start talking and teaching. And is there anything else I need to start listening to?" And all of a sudden, I knew why I was there. I knew I was going to be perfectly fine. And on day 10, sorry, on day 9, they wanted to send me home, but the doctor at the last minute said, we're going to keep you a little longer just to see how tonight goes. By day 10, I was sent home 10 days early. And they couldn't believe that I was in that state. When I went home and the visiting nurses saw me, they're like, "Oh my goodness, you are the best patient I ever had." Now, mind you, I could not walk upstairs. I was crawling up the stairs to get to my bedroom, crawling down the stairs to get to the couch. And then I had a break for 20 minutes to get my O2 from 80 to 90. Now, if you're a nurse, you know 80 is not good. If you know 90 is not good, okay? That's how bad I was, but I was still the best patient they've ever seen. And I go and I started doing lives, and all of a sudden everything was just the energy just switched. Like I knew why I was there, and the outlook and the mentality had completely changed everything to a point. I was working out at the gym. It took me a month to get back to the gym. Well, it took me like 3 weeks to get back to the gym. Even then, I was going really, really slow. I was doing these certain workouts that were timed. And one day I went and I did yoga. But the yoga was canceled or switched, and we decided to do a chanting ohms for the whole class. And so there's three of us. And the guy starts it, and we're doing ohms, and I'm like this, om, oh. By the time we got to like the second half, I was ohming for 30 to 45 seconds nonstop. And when we were all done, 'cause we were all facing different directions at that point, the two of them looked at me with these wide eyes and said, "What did you fucking do to us?" Like, what? Because we've never felt that ever before in our life. They both were like, "We've never felt this energy. Where did it all come from?" I had no clue. All I know is the next day I went to the gym, I did a repeat workout, and I shaved out of a 25-minute workout, I cut it down to under 20 minutes. The day after that, I ran for the first time and I did an 8+ minute mile, which, oh my goodness, I wasn't doing that beforehand. Okay, outside. So all of a sudden, everything had come back to me just with these little practices. And so this journey goes on, and then the tumor removed. That's a whole other story. I'm not going to go in there. But we're talking about the positive mentality with this COVID. This is where it comes from. Like when the doctor literally called me on his cell phone when I said, "What are you doing, Thomas? I need to see you and get this out of you as soon as possible. You're not officially cancerous, but you're just above it. Like, here's the borderline. You're like right here, okay? We want this. They said no radiation, but we want this out." And so I'm like, okay. He goes, I'm gonna have call. My assistants are gonna call all the doctors, and we're gonna have the schedule for you, and we'll call you tomorrow with all the details. I'm like, okay, don't worry about it. I go in for the schedule, and he looks at me, and he goes, it grew, and it grew. That's another reason that I'm not gonna go why it grew. I know why it grew, but when he called me a week after the surgery, he was shocked. He goes, I didn't believe the results. I sent him to John Hopkins to give me a second opinion because I did not believe the results. When I met with him 2 days later, he had the new results. He goes, you were right this whole time. I'm like, I know. He was like, it wasn't here. It was up here. Like it was nothing to worry about. In fact, then he goes to me, so how are you feeling? I'm like, great. I just ran an 8 minute mile yesterday. He goes, you did what? I was in your heart a week ago. And you ran an 8 minute mile. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Even to this day, he can't believe it. When I see him, he still looks at rolls his eye and goes, how? And then he looks and he knows, I know. But it's that attitude that comes with it. So we go through that, and then the light language starts. 4 months later, I did a fire walk. I'd never done it before, didn't know why I was there. In fact, I had no clue while I was there.
Before you go there,
Yeah,
I want to back up just a little bit.
please
I'm
do.
a
I know I'm
little
everywhere.
okay, thanks for admitting that. Um, so yeah, I don't think I'm understanding. So I remember you were saying that you were in the hospital for the COVID and all that, and
Yep.
you happen to have had tumors on your chest at the same time. So did you, what I'm understanding, did you heal the COVID and the tumors at the same time? But you're
No.
also talking about there was something with your doctors. So connect those dots for me. I'm not
Yeah.
fully understanding.
So the COVID, the COVID happened, and that was
Uh-huh.
to shut me down and
And
to
then you
get
got
me.
better.
And then got better. It was all my mindset getting better. I was healed myself, got better because I knew I was gonna be fine. I knew I was everything would be fine. Everything was great. I knew I had to get to work. I started getting to work,
Okay.
and so then I had to take care of the tumors because everyone in my family knew I wasn't worried about it one bit. In fact, I was like, whatever. Now, to be very blunt and honest,
Yeah.
that was I told you in the very beginning. We had two paths. What I had here was my connection to this path. This is where how I was gonna get rid of it officially and take it away from me. And so this was the darkness that was here because it grew, it doubled in size from when something happened during this span. I connected with someone that was part of that dark past with me. And so that connection made this a little stronger, but we were able to take it out. The cleansing where I was at was able to keep it at bay. We were able to take out. That has to happen sometimes. Sometimes it manifests in that way, and we ourselves need to physically have something happen in order for the spiritual and the soul and everything else we know to be good. And so that is how that came. There were two separate things that just lined up together because that is what I needed to shift into the next realm, to shift to where I was going next. This is for me. This is a journey that I cannot fathom, and it was a quick journey. That when you put it in perspective, I'm like, oh my God, it's only been 5 years, and I've done all of this and gone through all these steps. And it's tough because you know when you go through all this stuff, you're like, your ego also gets like, oh, look how you can do. I'm like, calm down. It's not about that because my purpose is completely different. But the tumor was something that was ancient. I was, like I said, I've been both. I've been the epitome of this and next to the epitome of that. Um, but as we go along, the removing of the tumor, once again, also added with the COVID because it was about the attitude, the belief, knowing everything is going to be fine. There was no, it was all mindful. There was no worry, no fear. It was all like, okay, it's gonna be great. We'll be fine. We'll go through. And it worked out perfectly fine because the mind can overcome the physical, but you have to
S-
be in the right state for that.
So what I'm asking is, were they able to remove them, or did your body dissolve them on its own?
No, I needed them physically removed.
Okay.
I needed them physically removed. Could have gone that way? Yes, but we did something else.
Okay.
Um, but no, and then when you put all everything that happened in the sequence of things, what came into my life at the same time was like, you're not taking it off. We want it there, and then it had to be. I had because the crazy part about it is what happened next. I did the fire walk, and at the fire walk, they were saying at one point, write down your purpose for being here. I had no clue. I had no reason why I was there except for I was supporting my mentor and her friend. And it was something to do on a Saturday where I had nothing else to do. I had no clue why I was there. And all of a sudden, she says, "This is the activity you're gonna do." And I saw it, and the my whole body went, and I wrote it down. My throat chakra had been blocked, and I literally leading up to that, I would spend some. There were times I spent sitting in the shower, on the shower, like the ledge of the shower bathtub, saying, "I need to throw up." Like I'd be walking in the woods, the energy would be so strong in my throat chakra that I didn't know what to do. I had to stop walking because I felt like I was going to throw up. I wasn't going to throw up. There was just this major blockage right here, and so I did the activity. I wrote down that I'm here for the throat chakra. I know it now. I did the activity. And that Tuesday, I went to see my Reiki for a yoga class. And I'm like, "So are you offering Reiki anytime to get certified?" She goes, "Actually, on Saturday." So I'm like, "Sign me up." She goes, "Yeah, they're telling me you have to go to this one." I'm like, "Okay." So I did it. As I'm doing my first ever Reiki session. So this is the practice, last thing we're doing. I start at the head and I walk to the side. And as I get to the stomach, all of a sudden, the light language just bursts out of me. Don't know where it came from. Don't know what. I just let it all happen. And I look over like, oh, what's going on? And she is standing there in front of me, but to the side, like, yes, they're all cheering for you right now. Keep it going. So I'm like, okay. And so that started the light language part of it and started that coming out, letting that go freely out and coming out with that. But there was a catch because we always don't learn, but there's always a synchronicity and a purpose. At the same point, the person that was from my past that was dark had come back into my life right after that because we did speak the same light language. But this time, I saw it, the puppet, the master behind it all. And so that led to a really crazy 2 months to where things I could not fathom happening. Like, how the F does this happen? I had like 5 or 6 things that you couldn't fathom a way for these things happening, all going wrong.
What
And
do you, what do you mean by when you say puppet?
so that's a good question. So yeah, we're going so many different directions. We might have a whole conversation on low vibrational dark entities. Uh,
Oh, we can talk about that.
yes,
Hmm.
that would be a whole.
Yeah, we can do a whole episode on that, let me tell you, friend,
Yep.
because I
So the simplest way of putting it is This is what happened. Let me tell the story will explain it. So, come February, one of my closest and dearest friends sends me a text at the late hour saying, "This is what's going on." She could see me because we were very galactic, very ancient together. She could see what was going on with me. She couldn't see what was going on with her. I knew what was going on with both of us. I knew what was going on with her, but when she said it was going on with me, it resonated like the thing. Oh my goodness, when someone tells you something, you're like, that's 100% true. It's like, oh shit. And then once she said it, something weird happened that confirmed it. And so I immediately think I sent a text to someone and they said, "We already gave you the tools. It's already in your bedroom." I'm like, "It is." And I took out the tools I needed, started working on me. Then I kept my Reiki. They're Reiki got back to me in the morning. She's, "Holy shit, I see what's happening right now." And so then it was like boom, boom, boom. My team's going after it. And then we had a session the next day, like 2 days later, and that's when it all came clear. Many of these, there are multiple different forms of low vibrational entities. However, many of them are controlled by a puppet tier. So there's one larger, stronger that has, imagine these strings coming down to these. So what I showed you, the Stranger Things, that is not a master. Let me say, it is a puppet to a master. There's something else that gives it, that puts it where it needs to be, that was created, and they can build from there based on this other story. Well, when I saw the thing a few months earlier, now we're attacking it, but now we're attacking in a different light because what happened with every the transitions I did with I then the best way to describe it, I went through the healing. We had beaten it almost. The last step was I needed my Reiki 2. I did not need it to become a Reiki 2 teacher and give you heal. I needed it for myself. And I get the attunements and I'm sitting there and I hear two things. I'm still here.
Mhm.
And then, oh, we got it.
Mm.
And when it's all, I was bawling. And when it was all said and done, I look over and she's my Reiki master's over in the corner of the room, astonished. She goes, "I've never seen that in my life before. What was around you was this beautiful, these beings, these tall beings, and the white light that was surrounding you and was shooting out in every single direction was incredible. I've never seen it before." And it was like they were not just taking it, but what they were able to do is follow the string up to the puppeteer, find all the strings, and take the puppeteer and the puppets out. Now, anything can be reconjured, that's a whole different story. But that's how and the neat thing about it was the next day I went to see the Sheila, who was my mentor, and I tell her story and she points to the top of her wall and goes, "You see that? That's the Syrians. That's what they do." And I'm like, oh, this is all really connecting to me for where we're going with it all. And so that was a huge, that's actually when for me, that's when I actually officially became vegetarian. That is like, I was that whole month was this whole shift that I needed. I needed because of who I was with myself and with my growth and my vibrational shifting that was happening. But that's when that happened to me. Uh, it was completely like unexpected. But now here, I'm a PhD. I want proof. I don't see. I'm not a seer. I don't see. I rarely see things unless I really, they really, 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 really need me to see it. Now that friend who came back in my life twice with the dark connection, she vowed she hated me for what I told her. When I told her, "No, there's this thing attached to you," she goes, "No, there's not. I've had lots of hearings. I'm You ready? 3 or 4 months later, out of the blue, I get a text message. I'm sorry. I almost died. You were right. Not only was I right, she started telling me what had happened. The exact day that we first attacked this thing, she was admitted to the ER and almost died. The next time we attacked it, she was back in the ER and almost died.
Mm.
No one could explain what was going on with her, but she spent February in the hospital. And that February is when we were taking this thing out. And if it was any, but it was this person who vowed never, vowed that I was wrong, vowed that she was all this. And it wasn't just like the same time frame. It was Did you hear that?
Yeah, I was going to ask you what that was. Sound like something fell or something clanged in your
Right.
background.
Okay. I'll worry about that later. Okay. I freaked. I thought I should that from my Okay. Uh,
Do you think talking about some of that stuff is bringing some energy around you right now?
haven't figured it out yet.
Okay.
Um, anyways, the exact freaking time. Uh, exact day. That when I heard the dates, I'm like, holy shit, and I got my calendar out. I'm like, yep, yep, that's when we did all this stuff. And then that opened me up to, at the same point, I was given another story to read, which, oh my goodness, I never cried before reading this, like this, reading this a story, because once again resonated with me so much, with helped me explain the good and the good, the low, the high balance that was within me for years. Um, and then from there, later that year, I knew I was channeling, but I had no idea what channeling was. And so I kind of was channeling, kind of wasn't, didn't know what I was doing. But I finally said to myself, fine, you want me to do this? I laid in my bed and I'm like, November's the next day. I'll start channeling tomorrow. What the heck am I going to talk about? And I laid there in my bed and closed my eyes, and all of a sudden it just came out. A theory, an idea, the premise I had never even thought of or heard of before about the purpose of all humanity, the purpose of us, the purpose of everything here, which is so simple. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this makes sense. And then I did a whole series of channels building off of each other to explain things, teaching, just to help the simplicity of what this life is like. Um, it's tough because you see channels out there, and some of them, there's multiple ways of doing it. Some of them, they close their eyes and they literally go into the bathroom, and the entity takes over because that's what they need to do. Some of them close their eyes and they just step aside. Some of them have their voices changed. I know. I've got the Syrians like to change my voice. They know it's them. So I know it's them. As you heard, I didn't really change my voice on my channel before. I don't know if it did. I can't tell. I just know it was. If I close my eyes, they're really coming in. I'm working on not closing my eyes and not changing my voice because the way it should flow and will flow is just natural conversation. When they come in with the energy. Uh, it's tough to explain to people. And the only thing I can say is there are some things I just know. I can't explain how. No, I'm not. I don't know lotto numbers. No, I don't know. It, there's no concept of money on the other side. There's no, we already explained, there is no predicting the future.
Hmm.
Except for there's one thing I can say with 100% certainty. We are moving forward because we passed the point of no return in the 50s. 50s and 60s, the planet itself passed the point of no return. Humanity passed the point of no return in the 80s. No return meaning no return. We've all said we're moving forward with the higher vibrational, higher we meaning we passed the and at that point, all the predictions of Cryon have come true. Meaning the energy has shifted, the magnetic grid has shifted, the Earth's resonance has completely great grown up, gone up and up to a point where runways had to be changed, communication way the army does communication had to be changed. Things had to change because we shifted, because the Earth needed to be shifted and prepared because we're actually going into clean space too. We're going to a clean space for the first time in a long, for almost ever. Well before when humanity was on this planet, we're going to a clean space in space. So there's a lot that's going to be changing that we are preparing us for, but we are moving forward. The only variable is how long it takes, because that is our choice. They don't have that any input on that. It is all humans' choice. We get to choose if we move tomorrow. Obviously, that's not happening, or in 1,000 years.
Hmm.
Anything in between, we choose when we make that shift. Because we have to just be ready. It's like the whole drones people are seeing right now and going around. It's not about what they are. It has nothing to do with what they are because they're human made, with the exception of a few. People don't realize most of them are human made, and then there's a few hidden in there just to see what the reaction is going to be. It's all about how we react that will determine what happens next. And when we are finally good, and we are finally at a place where we are in the high majority, not even high majority, majority of us are love driven, we will see the most drastic change happen in how civilization lives. And what we are seeing now, people are always, the boomers are talking about this young generation coming in because they're the exact opposite. Because the young generation in has already had their 24th chromosome activated. They already have had things. I mean, yeah, so there's so many things like 24th chromosome. Deanna, how many chromosomes do we have?
Well,
All right, how many
23.
chromosomes do the
Yeah,
doctors in the book say we have?
the 23. The
But if
pairs.
you take magnetic energy and put it into the DNA, 24 show up. They can't find it anywhere else. So what science does is if they can't explain it, they assume it's invalid. They just toss it out. Think about that. If you went to the ocean and went in the middle of the ocean anywhere you want and took a small little vial of water, took an eyedropper, took some water out of the ocean, put it in the vial, and you didn't find life, does that mean the ocean is lifeless?
Depends
So,
upon who you ask.
right. So if you go into space and you don't find life anywhere around us because we can't be, let's go back to this again. We can't be, go back to the light language definition. We can't be given the bias that there is life out there because what will we do? We'll try to learn from that existing life or be afraid of it
I
instead
think
of
that's
building
the
ourselves.
challenge right there, is most of the times they don't try to learn.
Right.
It's all
And
ego
so,
and fear factor.
exactly.
That's
Hence, none of the planets around
my
us
opinion.
are with life that we can detect. Hence, the everything is done in incognito mode.
Well, I would say there is life, and there has been detected. That is, I mean, yeah, they can't get away from that.
Right.
I like the other word that you used, the incognito. They just keep it under wraps.
Yes. Yes.
Kind of like all this stuff, which I think is what you're talking about with
Yes. But I've talked for an hour.
excuse me, sorry. I was
Do you have
gonna
any
say,
questions? Or I mean, I'm gonna. There's so much more.
yeah, so I would actually like to know what you do. Like, I understand how you got here. I understand that you channel and you speak light language. And
So
yeah, so what
dedicated.
exactly is it that you do? So yeah, I would really like to know exactly what it is that you do.
So would I.
That's a great answer. I love it. That is so great. That's a good answer. I understand that a lot.
So, you know, I might maybe a good example of what I talked about very much in the beginning. We put expectations on ourselves,
Okay.
and a lot of times, then we expect that to be what comes. And the
Mm,
truth is, when we let go of those expectations, what we truly want will find us, will present itself in front of us, and then we have the choice to take it or not. So, I've often said, I'm not a healer. I'm not a healer. I'm not a medium. I'm not uh, a psychic. I'm not any of that. I just don't know. I'm a teacher of some sort, and I am. I'm very much a teacher.
okay.
I am sent here to guide the transition, to help move us as a species, as a planet, as beings into the next era, the next phase, which has just started. So, what that looks like right now, this moment, there's two things that are really happening. One is I had to take almost a year off from channeling officially. Like I used to do messages on my YouTube page almost weekly. And there's some out there that are, I mean, I was going to take into a book and do all that stuff. But I had to stop because I had to learn something. I had to learn two things. I had to remind myself of what the soul speaks, that we are all here, and there is, the ego comes into play for people when they get to this point, when they, you know, they get knowledge. You see this a lot. I see this a lot, especially with people that feel they've reached an apex of their spiritual journey,
Mm,
that they think they know what needs to know and they can't, there's nothing else to learn, nowhere else to go, and their guides are always right.
mm. Mhm.
And so I had to take a step back this year, one, to just, okay, let's evaluate who I am, where I'm at, and what I'm really looking for, and
Good.
see what I need to do next. In that space, uh, I've also learned two different healing modalities. Well, three now. Reiki. I did them backwards. The order doesn't matter. But then Unity Field Healing, and then this year I was given integrated energy therapy. Now they all come together. I've done a talk in a couple different spaces about the history of all of them, how they work together, how they're intertwined, what they, how they flow and fit into where we are into the space we're in right now. Um, but then, this summer, Deanna and I, we knew there was more and kind of channeled a new style of healing. I names are to me like they're not important. I'm different, like the who I channel. I don't like they have a name, but they don't really have a name. It's irrelevant what their name is, who I channel, and the fact can be anyone I want. I mean, who comes through. Same thing with the healing. I mean, we as humans say, "Oh, these have a name, these have a category, these have a title to it." It really doesn't. I've changed the name three times already. And Deanna
Mhm.
can say, "Yes, we've changed the name three times. I've
Yeah.
changed the name three times already." And she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't like it. It doesn't really need a name, but it's a quantum healing, and I say quantum because it really is a galactic healing. It's a whole about it's about setting us up for what's coming next, preparing, activating, and taking off all that we do not need, and bringing on all that we desire. And So it's a combination of I know that healing is just starting, and we've gotten. I can't tell you like I'm very like I've said a couple times. I'm not going to lead any information. You need to give people need to give me information, and then I'll verify. And so like
Right.
even the first couple times we did this, the first time we did the healing together, oh my goodness, it was just one person. It was a trial, and my Reiki master happened to be there. It was her studio, and she was in the back just watching, or actually meditating.
Yeah.
And afterwards, she was describing things. I'm like, I didn't tell anyone what was going on. And she was describing to a T what was going on. So she knew what was going on with the healing just by in her meditation. She could see it, she could feel. And then the other time, I used the four elements in my portion of it. Deanna and her portion is doing something different. Uh, and one person had water drop on them. One person felt the heat of the fire, which is right. The other one's feeling like everything's swirling around, and I'm like, yeah, water was by you, fire was by you, wind was by you, and earth was by you. And they all had more of a stronger sense of the element that was by them without me saying anything. And what I've never even told Deanna what was going on. She doesn't even know
But
what's going on.
I got water on me too.
Yes.
Remember, I
When
was
you were, yep.
standing near the person that was in the
Mm-hmm.
water element. And I was doing my end of the healing, feeling water drip on my arm, thinking, oh my God, there's a leak in the ceiling, and I'll have to talk to her about it afterwards, but let's just keep going. And it's like, okay. And I didn't know what you were doing with the elements. So I was experiencing them to a degree when I was going around in the circle doing and in like what I think of as the inner circle where I was doing my work, but most specifically the water came through like literally
Yeah.
drops on my arm that I wiped away and weren't there.
And the water is actually the gateway. But
Hmm.
now they're
Yeah.
telling me it's the gateway. So if anything was left or tries to get in, tries to get out, that's where they go through.
Well,
And
it was
hence the
right
water
at
gets
the
flashed.
same, it was at
Yes.
the area where the gateway is.
Yes,
So,
that's
yeah.
where the water is. So but yeah, so it's a combination of things. So I do these healings, we do these healings, but uh, I'm starting back up my YouTube channel in a little different way. But they're going to be spiritual teachings, and it's gonna be like spirituality 101 because you asked the question, what is light language? That's one of the episodes, and we're not talking. It'll be simple talks about things that people just don't know about, or things to just guide and help. 5 to 10 minutes to just go over these topics, everything from, what is spirituality in relation to religion? I mean, what is channeling? What is light language? I mean, little things. Even some low vibration, high vibration, ego. So like all these things, but it's all about helping people understand and learn, and then doing weekly healings. So my YouTube channel is where I'm going to right now. I mean, I can see where I'm going in the future, but it's whatever's going to happen. I know that I will eventually transition into doing all this on a full-time basis. Um, but you got to start somewhere and
Absolutely.
restart sometimes, and then just go with what the flow is. Um, because it's crazy to think I know who's around me, I know what they're from. Um, and I've been given a lot of parallels to certain things, uh, which a lot of times when our guides, we get these intuition, it's not always about what people think, you need to tell the whole world. A lot of times our guides, if we think of it in the right context, our guides and us and what we do is we're like our own planet. We can move about. Our guides are not here to truly help us. All right, yeah. Last thing we'll talk about. Our guides are not here to give us advice on how to help the person next to us. Our guides are here to help us with us. Now, when we clear our karma, which can be done, That's one of the conversations I have. When we clear our karma, because our karma is no longer valid. Only validity of our karma is what we want it to be. But our karma is no longer valid. It left in the late 80s, early 90s. Karma was no longer a tool. It's still there because we are still here. But you clear your karma, and all of a sudden, what you also can do and what will happen is you will invite the next level of guide to come in. That next level of guide is more, how do I say it the right way? Is more species, planet, purpose driven. Your own guides are more your agenda driven. When I say this, and this is very big distinction, people call what is my purpose? No, 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 no. We all have the same purpose. Purpose is a much bigger thing than we can admit. We all have the same purpose. However, we all have different agendas, different rationales for things we want to do and accomplish. That's not our purpose, that's our agenda for this expression. The purpose does not change from expression to expression, to life, to person to person. The purpose is the same. It's why we are all here. The agenda is how we reach the purpose. The guides, our guides we come in with, are agenda bound. They are here to help with the planning and the agendas that we have for our specific lives in this time. The new one that will come in, and then these entities like Cryon and Adironda that are more galactic, and galactic is really not the right word, but it is the right word. They're more higher galactic or higher energy. They are here for a greater purpose, our overall purpose, which is actually the creator's purpose, which is the whole bigger purpose. They are here to help with that. So they do a little more. This is where my team, because they've really taken over me, my team over. They are more about what is the greater good. Now my guys are still here and they still know my agenda, what I need to do, and they know they work together, but sometimes some take over, sometimes they're more influential than others, blah blah blah. But I have free choice in the whole thing. We all have free choice in the whole thing. Um, and so, that's part of, where I'm at, where people are at. And so you ask the question, what am I doing? What do I do? I'm just here to serve. But, I'm starting this year is my year to branch out and do a lot more, um, be more visible to finally come up, get over the fear of who I am, the
Mm.
fear of how people see you, because that's our biggest challenge is when you step out, you lose everyone. Or not everyone, but you can lose people because they don't understand. But that's not the point. But then they weren't supposed to be there in this time and in this place at this moment. And those that want it and need it and are ready for it will hear it and be there, and everything will be fine. And I mean, even the fact that my kids, you know, at least two of them, one of them is extremely eager. She jumps on my new uh, healing table and gets a healing every time she spends the night. And they're here half the time. So she's like, I'm going to bed. I'm like, good. Then she runs down the stairs, goes on the healing table, and said, all right, give me a healing. I think
Hmm.
she wants to
That's so
sleep on the
sweet.
mat, sleep on the
I
table.
love
But,
that.
so for me, even that was a big step of, all right, let's just be more transparent to the kids. They laugh at the light language, but that's okay. Be more transparent to the kids in that regard and just let it all flow. But I've talked a lot. Any other questions? Because I know I can talk for another 3 hours.
Would you be willing to come back for a part two?
Sure.
All right, then let's go ahead and
Excellent.
yeah, let's get you back for another episode. We would love to continue this with you. Thank you.
And
That sounds good.
we'll put a link to your podcast if you have it all set and ready. We'll put that in our comments section,
Hmm.
so people can easily find you for when you start this new venture, which I'm personally excited to see.
Yeah.
Um,
Until then, how can people get in touch with you?
Probably I mean, my YouTube channel or my email.
Email. Okay.
I
okay.
can give you guys that too. That's no big deal.
Yeah,
All right.
and Facebook. Are
Sure.
you okay?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a specific page right now, but I do have a group that a few of us are in
Great.
that we can always promote, and everyone's welcome to. It's a free public group,
Yep.
because that's what we want.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. You can find
absolutely.
both of us on there as well as other people, and we'll put a link for that down there too. And I just want to express my thanks to you for coming to talk with us. I I mean, you've been a mentor and a very, very close friend for me for a while, so I always learn when I listen, and I hope that other people are taking some of that home with them also.
Yeah,
Because yeah,
I find your journey quite interesting. Thank you for sharing, Thomas.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
yes,
Seriously.
yes.
All right. So, everybody out there, we will see you next week. And thank you so much, as always, for being a part of our world. Thank you.
And if you have any questions for Dr. Thomas or us about anything, throw them in the comments. We will get your answers. So
Yeah.
I want to put that out there too. And as always, we thank everybody for coming, for listening, for walking on the journey with us. So I think with that,
And we will see you back in just a little
yes.
bit. Thank
Yep.
you, Dr.
Thank
Thomas.
you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.